We are here, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends from across the nation. Myself, Neeraj Arora. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of SOCHM GEM Green Building Council. So, friends, as discussed with you, SOCHM GEM Green Building Council is organizing this 3 days virtual technical sessions and 2 days physical exhibition at India Habitat Center. So friends, this is SOCHM GEM 4th International Sustainability Conclave Expo and Awards. And today is the third day and this is our sixth and last virtual session. Tomorrow onwards, we will meet you at India Habitat Center. We welcome you all to the India Habitat Center for 2 days virtual physical Conclave Expo and Awards. And friends, our topic for this session is passive design and solar architecture. And for the discussion, we have a galaxy of speakers with us, starting with the architect Surinder Bagaji. Bagaji is the chairman SOCHM GEM Punjab chapter and principal architect Sakar Foundation. Welcome Bagaji. We have with us architect Manav Jain, town planner, local government Punjab. Welcome Manav Jain Saab. We have Dr. Bilkar Singh ji with us, co-chairman SOCHM GEM Punjab chapter and joint director retired PEDA. Welcome Bilkar ji. We have with us Mr. Amit Sahu, Sales Commercial Building Segment, Grundfos Palms India Private Limited. Grundfos is the logo partner for the conclave. Thank you, Amit ji, for joining. We have Engineer Anuj Agarwal ji with us, member SOCHM GEM Punjab chapter and director MBS MEP Consultants. Welcome, Anuj ji. And we have architect Dinesh Bhagat ji with us, co-chairman SOCHM GEM Punjab chapter, senior architect technical education government of Punjab. Welcome Dinesh ji. And we have with us Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, chairman SOCHM GEM Green Building Council and president Pankaj Dharkar and Associates. We have with us Deepika Sharma ji also. So welcome you all once again. And now I would request, before starting, I would request Harish to please run the partners video and then we'll invite Deepika ji for further proceedings. Harish, please run the video.
fit, protecting cables that power India's growth.
Thank you, Harish. Dharkar Saab, am I audible, Dharkar Saab? We would like to hear from you, and I'll be able to run your presentation as well. Dharkar ji. We can't hear you, Dharkar ji. Okay, so meanwhile, I'll connect with Dharkar ji. I would request Deepika ji for further proceedings. Deepika ji, over to you. Yeah. Deepika ji, over to you. Yeah, unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, perfect. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Neeraj Arora ji, for the brief introduction to the event. Due to some technical hitch, we could not join with Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, but I would like to briefly introduce him. Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, Chairman ASSOCHAM GEM, Green Building Council. Mr. Pankaj Dharkar is the founder president of a renowned MEP and green building consulting firm, namely PDA Pankaj Dharkar and Associates, which provides innovative and sustainable design solutions in the field of building engineering services, including HVAC&R, fire and life safety, electrical, light, ELV, plumbing, BMS, vertical transportation, renewables, and green building certifications. During his rich experience of 40 years, he has successfully designed and coordinated more than 4,000 projects and is associated as a consultant with several big groups like Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, Radisson, and many more. PDA is currently associated with 12 million square feet of green building footprints in India for certification work. PDA was also involved with the first net positive lab building project at SEPT, Ahmedabad, and currently doing the project MEP design work for the largest net positive campus for Nalanda University at Rajgir in Bihar. We would shortly be connected with Mr. Pankaj Dharkar. Now, our next speaker of the day is architect Surendra Baga. Architect Surendra Baga has established architectural organization Sakar Foundation in Chandigarh. His works are published in many journals and newspapers of repute. He has co-authored 3 books and has worked as chairman of IIA Chandigarh Punjab chapter for 2 terms, 2008 to 2012. Recently, he has been appointed as head of Chandigarh chapter of FSAI and chairman of GEM Punjab chapter. Now, it is the time to formally start the virtual session. I invite architect Surendra Baga to give the welcome address, followed by a presentation on the topic passive design. Over to you, Mr. Baga, please.
Thank you, Deepika. On behalf of ASSOCHAM GEM Punjab chapter, we welcome our national team leaders, especially Pankaj Dharkar ji and Neeraj Arora ji, for making this conference a huge success. We would like to welcome our esteemed speakers for today's webinar on passive design and solar architecture. Our speakers are Dr. Balkar Singh, who happened to be the co-chairman of ASSOCHAM GEM Punjab chapter. Architect planner Manav Jain from the local government. Then we have with us Amit Sahuji, who is going to present on behalf of the Grant First. Engineer Anuj Agarwal, he will be giving a presentation today. And we are especially thankful and we welcome architect Dinesh Bhagatji, who will be presenting vote of thanks, and Deepika Sharma, who will be comparing and doing comparing of the today's webinar. Now I will shift over to my presentation.
Harish, please give right to, yeah, okay.
Okay. We all know that India is divided climatically into 5 zones, and the zone 1 is cold and sunny region of India, which is parts of Himachal Pradesh and Jammu Kashmir. And composite region is the area indicated on this map, which is in a light golden yellow color. Hot and dry region is Rajasthan and parts of Gujarat. And warm and humid region is the coastal belt of India, and moderate region is a small belt near Pondicherry. And each zone has its own parameters to design. And first of all, I will briefly touch about the composite climate, or the passive design strategies involved in designing the buildings in a composite climate. So when we design buildings in a composite region, we have to resist heat gain in summer and resist heat loss in winter. In addition to that, we need to promote heat loss in summer and in monsoons. These are the main parameters. And following these strategies, we happen to design a church in Chandigarh. This is the church we designed 20 years ago. In this church, we have provided a cavity wall, and you can see the windows are very small and deeply recessed. And even the top barrel vault, the roof is painted in a white color to reflect incident sun rays. You can see the cavity wall all around the building in this plan. There is an ample light inside, but the windows are very small. Then we designed a Church of God in Chandigarh. In this church also, you can see the windows are hardly visible because this is the western side. Western side is the most dangerous side climatically in a composite climate. Then we designed a Bal Bhavan in Mohali. In this project, you can see we again opted to have small windows and deeply protected windows. And on the western part, we have provided a big toilet block, because if the toilet block gets heated up, that will not affect the building's interiors. You can see all the windows are deeply shaded and deeply protected. Then next in the row is a Yadvindra Public School. In this school, you can see we have used a combination of horizontal and vertical louvers. This is the map plan of the school. The central corridor is about 21 feet wide, having cutouts on the both sides. And you can see in this cross section how this corridor facilitates the movement of air inside the building. So I'm talking about the design strategies which we adopted in our projects. This is how we have shielded the windows. And next is we have done a housing project for HUDCO, for which we got a national award. In this project, you can see in this perspective view, we have introduced earth berms. We have introduced planters in front of windows. We have introduced a light color. We have introduced perforation in the parapet and so on. So even the courtyard planning was experimented. So as a result, we got a prize from HUDCO. And this is how the movement of air, is shown in this cross section. Then we designed a award-winning project for a convention center in Delhi. We got the first prize for this project. You can see in this photograph, the top roof is slanted in such a manner so that it's facing southwest, and the roof is made of solar panels. And all the doors and all the existing trees are retained, and we have introduced rainwater harvesting also. So these are some main features in this project. I'm going a bit fast. Then this is a small Manodisha hospital. It's a mental hospital in Punjab. In this hospital, you can see how we have shielded the windows from all sides. Because we have a very harsh climate, the windows are protected from sides, from top and bottom. And in addition to that, we have provided a small cutout in the middle, and that cutout facilitates the movement of air. So these, you can see how these cutouts are facilitating the air movement and how the windows are protected. You can see in this photograph. And in addition to that, we have done a small library project in a very remote village in Moga district of Punjab. And you can see this library terrace got a industrial cooler. It cools the air, and the cooled air is thrust down into the interiors from the ducts which are provided in the plant. And even the book racks are placed alongside the outer walls, because the book racks are acting as a thermal material. They provide thermal insulation. The windows are kept above the book racks, and these windows are providing ample amount of light inside. This is the plant shape. And next category is a hot and dry region. For the Indian Army, we happen to design a big township at Jaipur. In this township, these are the design strategies for a hot and dry region. We have to resist heat gain, and we have to promote heat loss in a hot and dry region. Then in this Army project, Army Township, we have ensured that 99% of our housing blocks are oriented north-south, because this is the best orientation for a hot and dry climate like Jaipur. The color is kept light so that it reflects incident sun rays. Then all the doors and windows are protected properly with the deep balconies. Self-shading was ensured, and even the existing trees in the campus are saved, and the planning is done in such a manner so that no tree was required to be cut. Next category is a warm and humid region, which is a coastal belt. And in this region, basically, we have a lot of humidity. We need to promote ventilation in this belt. So we happen to design 4 youth hostels here. This youth hostel at Bardhaman in West Bengal, we designed. And you can see this purple color. These are the dormitories. These dormitories have almost 5 to 6 openings. Even if there is no electricity, the ventilation happens automatically. And accordingly, we have a lot of rainfall there. We have put rainwater spouts to drain the rainwater from the terrace because pipes get choked very frequently. Then we have ensured the color scheme is such which never get spoiled with the rainfall and all that. And windows are protected from all the sides. These are some of the salient features. Then we designed a youth hostel at Joshipur in Odisha, which again falls in a coastal belt. In this, we have opted an octagonal module, and that module becomes a courtyard, that module becomes a dormitory, and that same module becomes a kitchen. And in this also, you can see we have opted for a light color which reflects sunlight. We have opted for rainwater spouts. We have opted for terraces and smaller windows, and all those features are there. And next zone is a moderate zone where we never got a chance to design any building. And moderate zone is one where, you know, the climate is comparatively not that much harsh. And in this, I borrowed a project from a very renowned Bombay-based architect. He's a close friend, Rumi Shroff. He designed this Bajaj Autos head office. And you can see he introduced these arch bombs. He has again kept the building white and small windows, and slit windows are provided. And even he has introduced sky light in the atrium. So as a result, the building works very beautifully. Then in the last is cold and cloudy region. In cold and cloudy region, the design strategy is just the opposite. Here we have to resist heat loss. We have to resist heat loss and promote heat gain. And we happen to design one project in Srinagar, and we have won competition for this. This is the project for a composite regional center for physically handicapped people. In this, we get a lot of rain, snowfall, and snow gets accumulated on the terraces. And it needs to be either mechanically cleaned or it needs to be cleaned physically. So we have tapered the roof in a particular angle so that snow falls automatically on its own. Likewise, some other features were introduced in this building. So these are some of the design strategies which we adopted in our projects in all the climatic zones. These are the passive design features which we experimented in many of our projects. And the conclusion of my talk is that India has different climatic zones, and each zone has its own parameters, and all architects, all engineers are required to work keeping in view the local climatic strategies and the local climatic conditions. And with this note, I close. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhaga, sir. Our next speaker of the day is Mr. Manav Jain. Mr. Jain is working as town planner in the Department of Local Government of Punjab. His areas of work are master planning, urban planning policies, fire and life safety in buildings, solid waste management, and so on. Now, I wish to invite Mr. Jain to give his address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Jem, and thank you, Mr. Bagaji, for inviting me to this platform. So, not wasting much time, I'll be briefing some aspects of solar passive designing in sites as well as in buildings. So my focus will be both on macro level and micro level. So when I was introduced to this topic for today's session, first of all, sharing that with me. When we talk of solar passive architecture, so the things that come to my mind, that is the architecture of Rajasthan. We see the white city, the pink city, the city of lakes, and so and so. Then we have the best practices that come from Ladakh, Dhaji walls, and we have some good say examples from Hindu architecture, from Mughal architecture, from Indo-Sasanic architecture. Then it was copied by Britishers, and it was implemented by them also in our buildings, in our colonial say developments. And that we all know, the British architecture is famous for very high roofs. The height of the roof could be somewhere between 12 feet to 15 feet. I have myself seen many government buildings. Those were really having the essence of the climate responsive architecture from the climatic zones that Bagaji has now described. I have studied in Khalsa College, Amritsar, and the H-shaped design of this college, it also has that I have that memory with me that whenever we are going to we do a project, we try to have that H shape into the layout of that building. And to add to that, obviously the other aspects have to be taken care of, where you talk of orientation of the building, because that is the most important and the foremost thing. And we have say the green aspect to it. We have a lot of greenery around, and especially in the southern zone. The building in which I am sitting here at the moment, it is a it's a building, but all these aspects I don't find in this government building. I'm sitting at a temperature, say 20 degree or so, and I don't need even a warm sweater or a coat to be worn. It is so heat inside. So our buildings have to be climate responsive. It has to. Earlier, but what I missed today is that earlier, be it a foreigner, be it a Le Corbusier, or the Britishers, they had the sensitivity to design buildings in a foreign, say, climate. They studied Indian architecture, they studied India, they studied the climate, and they implemented the vernacular architecture in India. But in the past, say, a couple of decades, we are after only one thing. My facade is better than the facade of the other architect. My facade is best in India. My facade is best in the city. So we have not moved beyond facade and 3D planning. But for the kind information of all the participants, I would like to bring some aspects that even the government of India has also now brought into their legislations, and it was there, always there. If you talk about NBC, so all the versions of NBC, be it 2016, 2005, or earlier to that, it has talked about the light and ventilation, minimum light and ventilation aspect of the buildings. And we have seen that when we come to, when we design some buildings, be it it's a small building or it's a group housing or any other building, achieving 20% of light and ventilation is also very difficult for some professionals. Because somewhere I think we have lost ourselves into some other aspects of this industry. I don't know to name all those aspects. If we talk about the model building bylaws 2016 that now all states have implemented, and you will find now there is a particular mention about the light and ventilation, the tree plantation per 80 square meter of site area or so, and all such other things that are, and especially the ECBC, which is one of the remarkable achievements of the Ministry of BEE, and it is being implemented now in the state of Punjab, and I am sure ki in other states also my colleagues and friends are implementing ECBC because it is compulsory, it is mandatory. Similarly, in Punjab, if I talk about say not exactly solar passive architecture, but the other aspects related to solar passive architecture, that is, we do not allow the buildings or sites or colonies without green infrastructure. That includes minimum 5% of the plot area as green. For group housing, we don't allow any group housing without 50% of the green space to be left. 15% green as formal green area has to be provided in the group housing projects. And similarly for commercial in multiplexes, we have provided at least 10% green spaces. That has to be provided mandatory. So I feel that we have to again go back to the history of architecture. We have to go back to our college days. We have to again revise our chapter on passive solar architecture, and we have to work on that area, because I tell you that this is the time where the crisis on water and energy are going to come, and there will be a huge catastrophe going to happen in the future, where you won't find blue and green infrastructure in the countries. And I'm sure that we Indians, we are very prompt, we are flexible, we respect nature, we respect sustainability. So we will definitely rise up to the occasion, and we will start planning for green and blue infrastructure in our towns, cities, and in our buildings. If you look at the latest interventions that have been brought by the government of India, so you please go and see the Amrut guidelines that has been given by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and it categorically talks about water security. Our cities have to be water secure, and it talks about green infrastructure. We have to provide green infrastructure, and for that purpose, we are giving incentives for green certification and incentives for ECBC. And to do little bit of solar passive construction is not very difficult. It is like inbuilt into our character as an architect. Can't we provide sunshades, proper sunshades designed as per the code? Can't we provide a proper window wall ratio? If we remember, if we see the old buildings, there is a window and there is a ventilator. There is a door and there is a ventilator. But now I don't find ventilators into our buildings. And that is why the air circulation within the building is less. The heat loads are more, and we are putting more pressure on our ACs, our HVAC, and then we have all those global environment, global warming issues, and so, all these things. And there used to be courtyard planning. We have left over somewhere back. Courtyard planning is no more there. Then there used to be some green space within the courtyards that used to act as humidification zone, that used to act as shading, and so many things were there. But that is, I don't find now into modern buildings, because the building in which I am sitting, at least it's not there. Then cavity walls, roof insulation, evaporative cooling. So here I talk about not ACs, but evaporative cooling. Like we used to have desert coolers in our homes. I still have desert coolers, 3 desert coolers in my home, and I use those coolers in the months of April, May, and June. So these are very important. We have seen Corona has affected our lungs. It is because we have shifted totally to the ACs. And if we get fresh air and proper humidity to our body and lungs, I'm sure that our immunity will be better and stronger. Similarly, there is a very small intervention. In winters, we have refrigerators heat. That heat is dissipated into the environment. With this very small intervention, we can use that heat, because refrigerator is a device which is used 24 hours in a day. And in winters, if we channelize that heat into our living rooms, it can give you a cozy environment. And there are so many interventions. I went to one of the buildings, and they used the cooling effect of the underground water, and they had directed their hot water into the underground reservoir of water. The cooling of the geo cooling was there without any effort. It was only you pump the water inside and you bring the water out. It was the water circulation into the earth, which has a constant temperature below the atmosphere temperature, and they cool their water without any effort. So these small interventions are like we can all adopt, we can all use these things, and we can save our environment, and we can reduce the load, we can reduce the cost and the running cost of the buildings with these kind of interventions and cost effective materials. And to add to it, vermicomposting that I am also doing in my house. So we should prefer vermicomposting because it doesn't add to the load of the solid waste management in the cities. We have seen heaps of garbage here and there. If we reduce our garbage to 20% with vermicomposting and segregation, it will be a huge service to the nation, to the city, to the society, and to our pocket also. Similarly, we should prefer some herbs into our buildings within and outside. Like we all know tulsi, ajwain, aloe vera, these kind of herbs colleagues and participants. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Manav Jain, sir. The idea of raising concern towards various aspects like light and ventilation, natural penetration of light, and passive solar architecture designs in the buildings, rather than only focusing on the facade designs, is commendable. We all need to promote such thoughts and ideas about architecture and its effects on the climate and ultimately on us. Thank you once again, sir, for sharing such a great information. Now, we have with us one of our eminent speakers, Dr. Balkar Singh. Dr. Balkar Singh has retired as AGM from PEDA and have delivered nearly 100 presentations on green building technologies, ECBC, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and so on. Title of his talk is Role of Solar Passive Architecture in Building Design. May I invite Dr. Balkar, sir, to give his presentation. Sir, please.
Can I get sharing right, please?
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir, you have it now.
My screen is visible? Hello.
Yes, sir, it's visible. Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So thank you, Deepika, for a brief introduction. So today we are actually on International Sustainability Conclave, which has been started on 30th November, and it will be concluded on 4th December. And today's topic is passive design and solar architecture. So my topic is role of solar passive architecture in building design. So we will start with the quote of the day. Natural ventilation and daylighting is built environment. In built environment is possible with passive design strategies in the building. Adopt solar passive architecture to become energy independent and to enjoy environment-friendly living standards. So join green eco-friendly movement, secure your life in safe and sound environment. So recently, the COP26 has been concluded, and on 2nd November 2021, our Prime Minister has committed to give his commitment from India that by 2030, half of India's energy would come from renewables. By 2070, India would stop adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere and achieve net zero, that is carbon neutrality. So this is our commitment to the internet at an international level, and we are being the fraternity of building construction, building sector. So in this cause to achieve this target set by our Honorable Prime Minister, we have to work with that we can design our building as per the solar passive architecture design and net zero energy buildings. So when we are talking about the pattern of electricity consumption in India, we have maximum consumption in industry, that is more than 40%. And the second is we have energy consumption in the building sector. And in building sector, we have in commercial in 9%, and in residential, we have 24% energy consumption. So Startly, Bureau of Energy Efficiency has started commercial energy conservation building code. Now he has shifted to also with the residential code, that is Eco Niwas Samhita, and a lot of work is being done on this. So when we are talking about the green and net zero energy buildings, the need. Global warming through greenhouse gas emission is one of the biggest threat to atmosphere. Building sector is responsible for release of carbon dioxide emission, which is 33% of the total energy consumption. The fast growth in population and increase in urbanization is leading to enhanced demand of building. Expected increase in building sector is fivefold from 21 billion square feet in 2005 to 104 billion square feet in 2030. Design and construction of green and net zero energy building is one of the ultimate solution to reduce the global warming. Enhanced energy performance can be achieved by addressing important issue for construction of building, that is starting from planning, designing, then construction and its operation, which is very important. We have to see its operation also, because the main consumption is the running consumption. So we have green building rating systems, a different type of ratings is prevailing in India. We have 4 IGBC, GRIHA, LEED, and GEM sustainability certification rating program, which is the youngest one. GEM is the youngest one and the latest one, and is even, you can say, new model of green building rating, in which the GEM has included fire and life safety in sustainable buildings. And they have, according to the National Building Code 2016, and it is also as per the Energy Conservation Building Code 2017. And this and it has 30 principles and 135 points, and we can achieve if we can get more than 105 points, we can get 5 GEM rating in this sector. It is the youngest one and latest one and new model of this green building rating. So when we are talking about the solar passive architecture, which is the backbone of net zero energy building, so we can say that gradually, in view of the environment concern, awareness through introduction of various acts and codes, even ECBC, people are thinking for energy efficient green building or green houses. Now buildings are expected to be designed to meet higher energy performance and green energy efficient design concepts for construction of building is being accepted to reduce energy demand of building. Net zero energy building design reduces the energy demand, simultaneously use of renewable energy to run the building. The concept of net zero is based upon the solar passive architecture design of a building. Performance-based net zero energy building depends upon the climate conditions, topography, and exact location of the building. Now, It is a challenge for architects and design professionals to design net zero energy building in different climate conditions, as already Mr. Baga has told about the five climate zones in India. When we are talking about the net zero energy building, it is we have to reduce our loads like as plug loads, lighting loads, HVAC loads, and other loads, and reduced load may be balanced from with the renewable energy generation, that is solar photovoltaic, or that may be a windmill or wind generators. When we are talking about the net zero energy building, the first strategy in this net zero energy building is a solar passive design strategy, which consists of building envelope, its orientation, daylighting, wall assembly, roof assembly, and fenestration, different type of fenestration. Second is active design strategy, that is energy efficient technology for HVAC, lighting control, appliances and equipment. And third is the renewable energy generation. So solar passive architecture design strategies, we will set orientation as per solar geometry of the building site, emphasize on cross ventilation, free flow of air movement, keep maximum open spaces for lighting and ventilation, control heat from roof, walls and glazing, and set high performance outer wall assembly, high performance roof assembly, high performance window and skylights, have optimum insulation to control heating, cooling effect. For fully air conditioned, we have to design airtight building envelope. Importance of solar passive building design. Solar passive building design makes the building envelope as environment friendly. The building envelope, that is shell of the building, cannot be modified again and again. So refurbishing of building concrete shell is not only difficult but also very costly. So we have to design this as per the solar passive architecture. Therefore, it shall give thermal comfort to occupants, natural lighting, ventilation, improve the living standard. Any active design, any active system can be added at any time with a little cost and little modification, but envelope cannot be changed. But built-in renewable energy system gives green power to the building. It is a sustainable building design and push towards a net zero energy building. So these are important component of the building envelope, that is wall assembly. It may be a cavity wall, it may be a thermal insulated wall. We have to reduce the energy heat ingress or heat loss. Then roof, we can add insulation in the roof. Then glazing, we have to use single glazing, double glazing, and even triple glazing from the harsh sun. And even we have to leak proof that envelope. So this is the an example of a solar passive complex. It is the existing example which has been constructed at Chandigarh in sector 33D. It is a solar passive complex, and it is the office of Punjab Energy Development Agency, where all the passive solar architecture design interventions has been made from orientation, floating slab, then cavity wall, light walls, insulated roofing, solar power plant also, and shell roofing also. You can see in Chandigarh, you can see that its orientation has been set such that it steps from south to north by height, and capture all the sun on the roof. And you can see that at the north side, auditorium has been placed so that shading of the building may cover the auditorium to reduce the air conditioning load. This is also the section of the building, and its orientation has been developed in response to the solar geometry, minimizing solar heat gain in hot period. The building envelope attenuate the outside ambient conditions, and the large volume of air is naturally conditioned by controlling solar excess in response to the climatic swing. So it has a unique floating slabs, overlapping slabs with interpenetration. Vertical cutouts is made to allow free and quick movement of naturally air, reducing by suffocating effect and easy movement of air. Then it has a cavity wall. You can see in the picture the actual work done over there. We have here 4.5 inches brick wall outside and 4.5 inches brick wall inside, and there is a cavity of 2 inches which has been filled with the rock wool wrapped in a polyurethane sheet, and it is working from almost from 2004. We tend to you can say that it is a very good construction made over here. Then light walls, you can see that on the south side there is sloping slabs and you can see that the domical structures from where you can solar activated naturally ventilating domical structure in south to admit daylight without glare and heat. Then double insulating roofs are there. You can see that there is slab, then there is a thin section of ferro cement barrel bolts, that is 1 inch to 1.5 inch. Then there is a rock wool insulation wrapped in polyurethane waterproof layers. And there is a double insulation on the roof, and it is reducing the energy ingress or heat ingress in the building. Then unique shell roofing at the end, central atrium, you can see a hyperbolic shell roofing over here, which has been made with the reinforced fiberglass coating sandwiched with the polystyrene. And you can see the mouth of that have polycarbonate, multi-layer polycarbonate sheet, which gets light, and that light is reflected to the surface or floor, which is also white, then multi-reflected, and a lot of light is available in the building. Then solar photovoltaic power plant is a building integrated solar power plant. It gives the electricity to the building, and it also gives the diffused light from upper side, and it is also covering the roof. It is also the roof is itself from the solar panels. It is a glass to glass panels. Then water bodies are there in the atrium, and this is running in the hot and dry period, that is from April to June, to give evaporative cooling to the building. Then landscape horticulture, you can see that from the roadside there is a curtain to minimize the air pollution, sound pollution, and filter the air and cool the air entering into the building. It is a passive system of getting cool air from outside. An auditorium is placed. You can see the picture over here. The auditorium is placed in the north side in the shade of the building to reduce the load of HVAC. So you can see the pictures. It's a very beautiful building. There is no conventional light, you can say, and plenty of light and workable light is available in the building. Then you can say daylit working environment in the building, and even fascinating architecture. You can also see the pictures. And second building is Akshaya Urja Bhavan in Panchkula, which has been constructed by HAREDA, that is Haryana Renewable Energy Development Agency. And it is also, the orientation has been set on north-south, vertical and horizontal shading devices are there. Then workplaces are daylit, cavity walls, puff insulation, roof insulation, and solar reflective tiles. Solar chimneys are also there, double glazing windows are there, then AC block, fly ash, then rainwater harvesting tank of the capacity 6.25 lakhs liter even, and building integrated power plant over there. So this is also an example of solar passive architecture. You can see the pictures, the cavity wall construction, then UPVC windows, then fly ash bricks they have used, then heat resistance roof tiles, that is Thermatec roof tiling, then solar passive design ducts are there from the solar chimney, the air is moving outside. Then misting is there, 0.2 mm orifice, you can see the working of the orifices. Then this is your misting in operation. This is louvers at 45 degree over open courtyard to cut the summer sun. Then this is the, everyone knows this is a net zero energy building in India, in Indira Paryavaran Bhavan in Delhi, and they have also made this building with the solar passive architecture, and it is a net zero energy building, you can see in Delhi also. So in the concluding, you can say that there is a need to adopt solar passive architecture strategies while designing and construction of the building. The onus is on the architects and design professionals to provide environment-friendly design of the building to deal with the issue of environmental degradation. Alternative solutions are required which fulfill the energy demand and have no impact on the environment. In this scenario, green building with solar passive design emerges as the best available solution to control the major issues. In the long run, net zero energy buildings are more cost efficient and contribute to the country's economy as well. So adopt a solar passive building design technology, save environment, save earth. Thank you very much for patience listening. Thank you, Deepika.
Thank you, Bilkar sir, for enlightening us with the role of solar passive architecture in the building design. The next presentation is by Mr. Amit Sahu from Grundfos, which is our sustainability sponsor. Over to Mr. Amit of Grundfos team. Sir, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Deepika, thanks for allowing me to be the presenter at this forum. I would like to get the presenter rights, please.
Yeah.
Is my screen up, please, Deepika? Just a minute, I'm sharing. Yeah, I hope the screen is up to view, everyone. I'll just put it in presenter mode. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Amit Sahu, currently based in Ahmedabad, working for Grundfos Firms. I'm currently taking care of the Gujarat, MP and Rajasthan territory, and shortly will be based out of Delhi to take care of complete North India, West India and East India for sales and commercial building segment. So this is an important platform where we would like to present ourselves as a sustainability partner because Grundfos as a manufacturer is not just about manufacturing goods and selling ultimately. So from past 75 years, if you'll see, sustainability has been our motto, and it is amongst one of the top priorities in our values whenever we talk about sustainability. As I have already told you, that being sustainable is one of our core values, and we'll always like to associate with ASSOCHEM Jam, where the presenters and the forum talks about being sustainable. Just like we were listening to the presenters, all our focus is now on how sustainable we can be. And we need to ensure as manufacturers or designers that taking more from environment is going to hurt us only. So we now need to look for solutions where we take less from environment. There are the few steps that we are taking from long time to be more sustainable in terms of an organization or manufacturer. Yes, we had a goal of around reduction of 36% of our CO2 emissions from all our production units across the globe, and this we have achieved in 2019. So if you can see that we are comparing ourselves from 2008, and we have already reduced CO2 emission by 36%. And this we have done by using maximum of solar products in our manufacturing units, solar panels. And this is even when we have almost doubled or tripled the manufacturing in Grundfos. So we as of now see around 2 to 3 times manufacturing being done as compared to 2008, and still the CO2 emission that we are talking about has been reduced by almost 36%. Another thing that we are talking about is providing water, good quality water to maximum people we can. So on this mission, we collaborate with a lot of NGOs, local government bodies, and other people who are already working in this field, and ensured that almost and maybe more than 1 million people were served with clear water, clear drinking water across the globe. And there are different ways with which we have collaborated with different teams to ensure this we do. Now we have an ambition to cut down our water withdrawal by 51%. That is, whatever we had in 2008, we would like to extract water by almost 50% less than that capacity in 2025. And we are very much on right track, and we are going to achieve that number for sure. Other things that we talk about is that it's not just the product and other things, and we shouldn't talk about all these things, and we should implement things a more sustainable approach that gives us more sustainable approach. So whatever production or plant, plastic that we are using or any other commodity that we are using are ensured that all these products are basically biodegradable. That is in terms of cutlery that we use in factories, or even the packaging material where we use plastics. That plastic is also biodegradable plastic. So these are the things that we ensure to see that we are moving in the right direction towards biodegradable. Even the grease that we use in pumps are biodegradable greases, and for sure all these things will make us more premium as compared to competitors. We have ensured that we are employing physically able people in our factories, and all our manufacturing units are having physically able people as our colleagues, and we enjoy time with them for sure. Not just this, as a manufacturer, we believe in win-win-win strategy. This is moving ahead from just the win-win strategy, where earlier a seller and a buyer used to win-win condition. We now need to move ahead and talk about win for the nature as well. And this is what we are talking from long. Win for seller, win for buyer, and win for nature. Because 22% of world electricity is consumed by pump motors. That's a big number. And when we see the capex is basically the tip of the iceberg, and whatever we are investing as energy cost is the real cost that we would not like to omit from now on. There are a few things that we do to ensure that it's not just the Grundfos individually, but whenever we are talking about the products as well, we ensure that we give something good to the market, an innovative product to the market where we can help market or basically reduce or cut down the energy costs. So this is something very innovative that we have come up with. This is distributed pumping system, where we talk about placing small pumps instead of using big pumps. We talk about placing small pumps with VFD and i5 motors on the AHU itself. We talk about the number of AHUs and the number of pumps, and this ensures that if we are talking about, or if we are comparing it with a secondary variable system, we are reducing by around 40% of the power consumption as compared to the secondary variable pumping systems. So this is very proven now, and we have almost around 8 to 10 sites in India now operational. Few are already operational, and few will be operational by this year end or by mid of next year. And there are already a lot of major projects in pipeline where we'll be going ahead, or the customers have agreed to go ahead with the distributed pumping system to ensure that the capex is minimum to the possible that they can. So distributed pumping, you can definitely come back to us to understand more about distributed pumping, where we are talking not using higher capacity pumps and the conventional secondary variable or primary variable system. These are basically the small pumps that we implement, and for sure ready to interact with you to elaborate more on this. Next thing we talk about is the plumbing part. Plumbing, if you see, these are the pumps, these are multi-VFD pumps, but there is a difference for sure. These are not the standard i3 motors. We have now moved on from i3 to i5 efficiency class, where we make the ultimate difference in market. These are the i5 multi-VFD systems, and we can commit very easily that we are delivering, we are consuming almost around 15% less power than any of our nearest competitor if they are supplying any hydro or multi-VFD hydro with i3 motors. It all happens because of the part load conditions of these motors, where the i5 efficiency motors are extremely energy efficient. And other things happens because of the control features that we have gotten or we have built in all the controllers of ours. So all these things add up and ensure that we save the maximum we can for our clients, and it's a win-win-win for, once again, all three. Before I end up, I would like to elaborate a service feature that we render to the market. These are the energy audit services that we extend services support. So in this, we have seen and we have done this for many of the clients in India, be it industry or commercial building segment, where after installation or on the existing installations, we do energy checks. We take our energy flow meters, we take the readings, and we evaluate the exact condition of the operating terms. In that, we have seen that there are sites which had potential of saving of close to 30%, 40%. All were oversized basically, or due to other facts, they were not running up to the potential. So we have suggested a lot of changes, maybe suggestion in line change, maybe suggestion in change of pumps or other systems, or maybe design. So by all these factors, we see that there are saving potentials of around 30 to 40%, be it HVAC, be it plumbing. So we do it in totality for each and every building, and we come back to you with a proposal on investment and the ROI. So we have seen that we do almost around 25 to 30 sites in a year for very easily, where people go ahead to invest with our suggestions and do the energy saving. And that ROI is normally 10 months, 15 months, or 18 months. Before ahead of that, we don't even suggest to go for. So these are the few potential that you can explore now with Grundfos, and you can definitely contact us. Thanks for being a great listener till now. You can definitely contact Grundfos team anytime, and we are very much available, and we are ready to serve you people. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Deepika, and thanks to SOChem Jam team for providing us the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu. Now we have with us Engineer Anuj Agarwal. He's an eminent HVAC consultant. We have specially invited him to offer his valuable views on passive architecture. Sir, please.
Can I have the sharing rights, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Good afternoon, friends. And after a heavy dose of bombardment, I would also like to bombard for another 10 minutes, not take more of your time. We will talk about solar passive design. Most of the aspects have already been elaborated by architect Bagaji and Valkarji and Manavji. And now let's do some basics about this thing, which everybody is already aware of. What do you mean by passive? Passive solar design. Passive is a term which uses that the building does not use energy consumption equipment like mechanical equipment, like air conditioning plants, pumps, fans, etc. This is very important that our old buildings, which we used to have, historically, we never had these systems, but they were wonderfully cool in summers and warm in winters. So these were the best examples of solar passive design. But unfortunately, with the modern architecture which we have, we are slowly getting into glass facades and all other things which does not allow these things. So in present days concept, this solar passive design becomes very important for us to implement, because by using modern materials and combining it with the old architectural designs, we can create a system where we can get best of the both of the worlds, use less of energy and have an efficient building. So without doing, solar energy is basically sun and light. Sun is full of light and heat. So we get a lot of it is, if we have a building which traps the heat of the sun, so we can get a wonderful heating, but that is for colder climate. So passive solar energy, when we say, is an excellent idea to heat and cool and light the living area based on the structure of our buildings. Passive solar energy is used to distribute heat or cool through the wise selection of the building materials, which is the very important, which was touched upon by Mr. Balkar Singh earlier in this presentation, when he talked about how to select the materials, and he described about one or two buildings also. Passive solar energy also provide inexpensive, sustainable alternative to heating, because as I explained you earlier, we do not require costly mechanical equipments like HVAC system, artificial lights and other things to in this type of architecture. So solar passive heating happens when sunlight strikes at an object and object absorbs the heat. This is for heating. And effective when windows are oriented correctly. So when we talk about north-south alignment, then cross ventilation, these are the aspects which we will be discussing separately. Orientation is south for heating, because we get a lot of heat in the afternoon time, and when the sun is towards the southwest side of the, so south orientation is always better for that. Now first we will I'll briefly touch upon the passive solar heating concept. The passive solar heating concept, the goal of all passive solar heating system is to capture the sun's heat within the building material and release the heat during periods when the sun is not shining. Basically, it radiates the heat inside the building. Primary elements of passive solar heating are thermal mass to absorb, store and distribute the heat. So we should have a big mass which will get heated during the daytime, and it will radiate the heat in the night time. South facing windows are designed to let the sun's heat in while insulating while against the cold. Open floor plans allow more sun inside. There are three main methods, that is direct gain, indirect gain and isolated gain. Direct gain, the actual living spaces in the solar collector, that is the windows here, and heat absorber and distribution system. South facing glass admits solar energy into the house, where it strikes masonry floors and walls, which absorb and store the solar heat, which is radiated back into the room at night. These thermal mass materials are typically dark in color in order to absorb as much heat as possible. Direct gain method is the simplest method, where the space of the building is directly heated by sunlight. Indirect gain, where actually what we do is we create a mass behind the glass facade, where the heat is gained by those mass, and then it is radiated back into the space. This is all used for heating purposes, not for cooling purposes. We will be coming to the cooling aspects separately in the later part of this presentation. Now, when we talk about passive cooling, which is more important for us, for a country which has more hot and humid climate, we have all the cold regions like Ladakh, some parts of Northeast, Uttaranchal, Himachal, where we can easily use the solar passive heating concept which I had described earlier. But for the larger part, maybe 80% of our area, we require cooling. Particularly, this aspect is very important for areas which are non-metro rural areas and not as easily accessible, because the technology is not available over there. But by way of adopting these systems, we can easily have a better environment to live in. Buildings are designed to retain cooling and draw the heat away. Shading device is fixed, and this can be achieved by natural vegetation. Natural vegetation is also one of the better ways of doing it. We see in villages that there are a lot of mud houses which have trees or shrubs nearby, or they just put some sort of bushes around their houses, so that protects the heat from directly coming into the building their houses. And spatial glazing of windows. Spatial glazing, definitely it is a concept, but it is more of metro oriented, because where we can have high efficiency, low heat absorbing glasses which are costlier in this thing. Shading devices can reduce solar gains. This is the concept of solar shading device is not a new concept. We had chhajjas, balconies, jalis, and all those things. These were used as shading devices right from centuries ago, and today also in green building concept, this is highly recommended. Rely on natural heat sinks to remove heat from the building. They derive cooling directly from evaporation, convection, and radiation. These are the three basic methods of heat transfer, that is evaporation, convection, and radiation. These are used to remove the heat from the building and to provide the cooling. Passive cooling systems are least expensive means of cooling space and maximizes the efficiency of the building envelope without any use of mechanical devices. That's the most important part. Without use of mechanical devices, maximum usage is by fan or a little bit of motor, not an expensive AC system which consumes a lot of energy. Now, how to achieve this thing? We discussed about shading the system. Then we can have ventilation, a good ventilation, solar chimneys, thermal mass, wind towers, evaporative cooling system, and courtyard effect. These are the basic concepts which can be incorporated in your architectural design based on the space available, the type of the building, the type of the usage, and a combination of all these things, or only one or two concepts to reduce the energy consumption of the building. Shading device, this is the most effective method, as I explained earlier. This shades the windows, and these are external or internal. External shading devices, we can have eaves, awnings, screens, shutters, louvers, verandas, pergolas, trees, shrubs, any number of things which can go to provide shade to your direct exposure to sunlight to your building, be it walls or glasses. Internal shading devices are curtains and blinds. Nowadays, a very disturbing trend in architecture is there that we provide huge glass facades and then try to put blinds and heavy curtains from inside. Although this reduces the heat gain from this thing, but this is not a very great design. So ideally, the external shading devices are much better than internal shading devices. Then next aspect is ventilation. When we come to this thing, ventilation is both natural and mechanical. Mechanical system, we used a fan to circulate air and replace the stale air with fresh air. And passive ventilation is when air is exchanged in the building through opening of the building envelope, be it jharokas, be it ventilators, be it open type of windows or jalis or something, from where the air is allowed to come in and the hot air is allowed to escape from the building. So these are used to ventilate the building, and the proper cross ventilated building. If you remember, I'm sure most of us must have visited old forts of Jaipur or Agra in our country, where if you go and see there, they have provided a beautiful blend of jalis on both sides of the corridors. And when you walk through the corridor, the air from one side comes in and there's a draft is created and which is emitted from the other side, and you get a beautiful breeze. Even in summers, you feel cool because the evaporation of this evaporation of the sweat from your body happens, and you start feeling cool. This concept has been used in one of the buildings which I incidentally remember is in modern architecture. This is Pearl Institute at Jaipur, they have done the same thing, and the entire college is running without any air conditioning, and they are maintaining close to 30 degrees centigrade in summers also. So this is the most important aspect of architecture, which has to be collaborated with an engineering studies, is how to maintain the minimum air quantity or the flow of air quantity to remove the heat. And this is to be done using, nowadays we are lucky to have computer models which can help us design these things and do the calculations and do the orientation of the building accordingly. Then we come to the stack ventilation. Ventilation can be with many methods. One is the stack ventilation. Stack ventilation, the ventilation, cool air is pulled throughout the home or the space, while warmer air rises above the cool air to exit through the opening near the top of the structure. These are, if you remember old Havelis, they used to have a ventilator at the very top. Generally, the ceilings were 14 to 16 feet high with a ventilator almost at the highest level. So what used to happen was the cold air was there, and the hot air, which happened because of the occupancy and other things, was rising above, and it was getting ventilated from the top. And the doors were smaller, so the cold air was coming inside to replace that, and which became which reduced the temperature of the inside environment. Stack ventilation is where air is driven through the building by vertical pressure differences developed by thermal buoyancy. The warm air inside the building is less dense than cooler air outside, and thus try to escape from the high opening, which I explained earlier. When to use stack ventilation, when there is no wind pressure is available, building can be designed to induce its own ventilation by duplicating the temperature stratification. So these are the few aspects which has to be clubbed into the architecture, how to use stack ventilation. Stack effect is not very strong because we are relying on the pressure differential created by the temperature difference of the air. So it requires very critical balance of the architecture and the studies, wind pressure studies, wherein you can create it. If it is not done properly, it can go horribly wrong. So though it's a very good concept, but and used well in olden days, but these days many people are not using it. Like I explained, the weakness is the driving pressure is generated by thermal buoyancy, which is very difficult to obtain. Then cross ventilation. This is one area which is easily adoptable and used mostly in these days in architecture, where the air is allowed to come from one side and it is allowed to bleed from the other side, and thereby creating a breeze inside the building. And then the reason because of that breeze, you get cooling effect. When we design a building with having a cross ventilation, what we have to design is wind speed is directional and very variable. It is never constant because it keeps on changing based on the outside temperature and many other features. Opening must be controllable to control the wide range of required to ventilator rates and wide range of wind speeds. As with stack ventilation, the internal flow path inside the building must be considered. There should be no obstruction in the cross ventilation. If you have created a wall or kept some other mass of big mass in the building, then the whole concept of cross ventilation gets defeated. For cross ventilation, bear in mind that the plan for the cross ventilation is very important. So as with the stack ventilation, the requirement of large openings is present in this case also, which has to be seen. But this is something which has to be carefully embedded in the design initially. Then night ventilation. This is something which is now being used more and more in 24/7 buildings, like particularly IT buildings, where we have a controlled environment throughout the day. And luckily in India, in North India, when we say the nights are much pleasant than the temperatures. So at times the night temperature outside is much cooler than the temperature inside. And what we do is we run the artificial air conditioning system to cool the inside. So this can be reduced by carefully providing louvers and dampers in the system, wherein when the temperature is outside is less, then we have more fresh air into the building, thereby cooling the building and reducing the load on the air conditioning system. Solar chimney. Solar chimney is also a very important concept which is used in few buildings, like the building we talked about Hareda. There is a solar chimney where there is a building of Terry in Gurgaon where solar chimneys have been used. These buildings actually what they do is they take the help of heat because of the sun and the temperature rise of the air, and then the air is bled out using a reducing cross section chimney, so that it creates a draft and we get the cooling inside the building. Now, thermal mass. A material that has thermal mass is one of the best capacity to absorb, store and release sun's heat or energy. The best way to cool a building is to build with thick stone or masonry. All our forts, all our buildings were built with stone, and that's why they were one of they were cool. And thermal mass is measured in terms of volumetric heat capacity. Heat capacity is different for different things, and what happens is these walls provide insulation in the daytime, and they keep the inside cool. And in the night, what happens is they start radiating the heat. Flat roofs get more radiations, while vaulted or domed roofs prevent absorption of heat in the summer's vertical sun. So all our old structures, particularly when we talk about Mughal architecture or architecture which is available in Middle East and old cities, they had domed roofs because the heat was whatever hot air was there, that was trapped around the dome and it was let out from there only. It was not allowed to come down. Wind towers. In a wind tower, the hot air enters the tower through the openings in the tower and get cooled, thus becoming heavier and sinks down. The inlet and outlet of the rooms induce cool air and movement. In the presence of wind, air is cooled more efficiently and flows faster down the tower and into the living area. After a whole day of air exchanges, the tower becomes warm in the evening. During the night, cooler ambient air comes in contact with the bottom of the tower through the room. It is similar to something like solar chimney, wherein you get the heat to come. Heating by the sun is used to heat the air and to escape, take the heat from the inside the building. Now the next concept of cooling, which use bit of mechanical energy, because all these concepts which I have explained earlier do not use any mechanical energy, is the evaporative cooling. Evaporative cooling can be mechanical and can be without mechanical intervention. Generally, these days people are using mechanical intervention because of the space constraints. Earlier, we used to have fountains, canals, water bodies within the building, which used to cool the air, and because the water used to get evaporated and reduce the temperature of the air inside the building. But nowadays, that is not possible because of the space constraints. The buildings are becoming tighter, the requirements and the return of investment on the space is very important for people. So what we do is we provide an air washer where the air is mechanically allowed to pass over the water curtain, and the air is cooled artificially and it is bled into the building. And it is once it is exhausted after the water having a very high latent heat or absorption, it gets heated and takes the heat from the building and is exhausted out. Courtyard. This was one of the most important concepts of Indian homes, which has been lost again. We used to have a courtyard wherein on the rooms were opening into the courtyard. So what used to happen was the air in the courtyard used to get heated because of the direct sunlight incidence, and it used to get lighter and rise above. So there was a draft from the rooms towards the courtyard in the daytime, which used to cool the rooms. And in the night time, it used to just work at the opposite way. So that's how the the houses were much cooler. And even in this concept was very much prevalent in South India, where we have very harsh sun and we have very harsh summer. Down drought cooling system is also a very important system, but this is not used much of it in the practical purposes. Next aspect is the jali. That is very much used in Havelis and other places. Nowadays, it is also being used. We are having a lot of architects who are practicing this concept and providing jalis with in their architecture to cool the spaces and also to create a lot of patterns of their buildings. It controls the airflow, and because of the small apertures in the jalis, the Venturi effect happens and the air gets cooler. So, and also allows the light to pass on. So mostly if you see all the buildings, old buildings used to have this jali concept. The next concept which we will be using for solar passive design is the earth air tunnel. We all know that the air temperature, the soil temperature at around 4 meters below the earth is constant throughout the year. So, and this is being used widely in the earth air tunnels, geothermal air conditioning concepts, where we are discharging and taking the heat from the earth below and distributing into the building. We have designed one such building in Chandigarh itself. That's the Paryavaran Bhavan here, which is working successfully for last almost 10 years, and is one of the most successful earth air tunnel buildings in this area. So now let's go to the what is the advantages of passive solar design. Eliminates heats and cooling costs, reduces greenhouse gas emissions. It's a clean process, eco-friendly, cost-effective, attractive living environment, low maintenance, and unwavering comfort. And if it is so advantageous, why should we not all follow this thing? But it doesn't happen that it has only advantages. It has some disadvantages also. The biggest disadvantage is it requires a lot of working between engineers and architects to coordinated working. All systems are not same, so every building, every design is very difficult and it has to be there, and every design cannot have a passive solar design. Every building cannot have. Careful construction. The construction is very important. If you design properly and you do not have a proper construction, your design will grossly fail. There are many examples of such things in Chandigarh itself. We will not like to name them, but there are. Improperly designed does not work well. So very important to have a proper design. Sunshine is not available on all the days. Extra heat and high temperature thermal losses. That is there, and that's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Anuj Agarwalji, for detailing out the various passive architecture techniques to all of us. Now is the time for question and answer session. We have received a number of questions from the audience. Our first question addresses to Engineer Anuj Agarwal. Sir, please, you need to connect once again, please.
Yeah.
So the question is, does solar passive architecture design come in the way of the overall profits of the stakeholder, as architects have to prove the ROI to the stakeholders along with the design?
Actually, no. If a design done properly and the customer understands the gains which he is going to get over the life period of the building, the solar passive architecture design does not cost much. The cost difference overall in the life cycle cost may not be more than 1 or 2%, which is hardly anything based on the gains which we will have for the environment and for the world at large.
Thank you so much, sir. for addressing the question in short and quick way. Our next question is for Mr. Neeraj Arora. Sir, do we have you?
There is a question by our participant Yatin Gulwadi. How does solar passive architecture and aesthetic design blend with each other? That's the question for Balkar Singh ji.
Yes, the next question is for Dr. Balkar Singh ji. Sir, do we have you, Dr. Balkar Singh?
Please repeat the question.
Yes, sir, I'll repeat it once again. How does solar passive architecture and aesthetic design blend with each other?
Yes, why not? Architects can do this while designing. Both the aspects can be done, and we have done in Chandigarh in solar passive architecture building, which I have shown in my slides.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next question is for Mr. Neeraj Arora. Do we have you, sir?
Can you please say the question? Yeah.
Yes. The question states, what are the requirements for providing consultancy awareness training programs and conducting audit for a green certification project? I think we are not able to connect with Neeraj, sir.
Yeah, can you say the question please again? This is for Neeraj
Yeah,
Arora
I'll
ji,
repeat
right?
the question
Okay.
once again.
Yeah, sure.
What are the requirements for providing consultancy, awareness training programs, and conducting audit for a green certification project?
Yeah, so first of all, in any of the green building certification projects, there are two agencies involved. One is the certifying agency. Say in this case, it will be ASSOCHAM GEM Council. And there is a consultant who will be working on the project, who will be doing the documentation for the projects and, doing site visits, taking photographs, taking other documents and, or other documents. So a consultant will do the site visits, meeting with the clients, stakeholders, submit the report to the ASSOCHAM GEM Green Building Council. And we, ASSOCHAM GEM, we review reports, and if reports are in line, that's wonderful. If we need some additional documentation, certificates, declaration, or any other document, we request the consultant and the client to provide the further details. Once this is done, we do the site visit. And in the site visit, say if we find some lacuna or if we find some additional points or something like that, so we give our feedback. And then we submit our final report to the consultant and the client. And on the basis of that, the rating is awarded. So for that purpose, the green building consultant should be well aware of and well trained on the green building certification program, GEM Green Building Certification Program. For that purpose, we provide the trainings to the consultants. We normally conduct the training on every last Saturday of the month. This training is absolutely free. So we provide trainings and educate the professionals, consultants, engineers, architects, students, faculties of colleges on GEM Green Building Certification Program. And after the training, if they wish to take the examination, they can take the examination and they can become the GEM certified professional. And then these GEM certified professional can execute any GEM Green Building Certification projects. So then they are eligible, they are authorized to make reports for ASSOCHAM GEM certification. They submit the reports reviewed by us, and then this is the procedure. So if anybody is interested in becoming the GEM certified professional, they can contact us separately. There are certain empaneled green building consultants we have in all the states. For example, if we want to execute the projects in Rajasthan, we have the empaneled consultants from Rajasthan. They can work on the projects registered from Rajasthan. And similarly for other states also. So we have empaneled consultants from the states, from that region. So if we get any lead from the states, we always recommend the local consultants, local stakeholders to do the project. So for that purpose, they can contact us anytime. So this will be my answer. I hope I have answered the questions.
Definitely, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Mr. Neeraj. Due to paucity of time, we will not be able to address all the questions. To the audience, please feel free to write to us over mail or over message. We will definitely reply to each one of you. Now, we have a small video from SOCHM. I'm handing it over to Mr. Shubh. Mr. Shubh, please.
Thank you, Deepika ji. So here we are thankful to our sustainable partners, friends. So without whom this report would not be possible. So we are thankful to Prince Pipes and Fittings, Lubrizol, Panasonic India, Mehta Tubes, ALP, Inner Engineering, Daikin India, and JSW, and so on. So here we'd like to play a short video of ALP. Harish ji, please play the video. Over to you, Shubhaji. Thank you, Harish ji. Back to you, Deepika ji. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Now we are touching the last part of this webinar. I invite architect Dinesh Bhagat, who is co-chair of GEM Punjab chapter, to present the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dinesh sir.
Good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks for each and everyone for the contribution into this memorable event. We would like to express deep gratitude to entire national leadership of SOCM GEM, especially Dharkar sir, Arora sir, Neeraj sir, and all other team members for conceptualizing this great conclave. Special thanks to our speakers, Shubhji, Surinder Bhaga ji, Manav Jain ji, Balkar ji, Agrawal, Engineer Anuj Agrawal ji, Amit Sahu ji for sharing their valuable time and views. Our team is grateful to all participants for attending this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. With this, we conclude today's session. Thank you one and all for joining with us today.
Thank you, Deepika ji. So friends, that's a great moment. So here we could conclude the last sessions of our virtual sessions in this conclave. So here we would like to give you all of you our sincere gratitude, and without whose support, these sessions would not have been possible. We also give our sincere gratitude and thanks to ministries, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Council of Architecture, NBT India, and NAREDCO. We are also thankful to all our sustainability partners. Thank you very much. And here we would like to say you that from tomorrow morning, so we'll have our physical sessions. So players who are nearby this Delhi region, Delhi and NC regions, they can register for this event, and we'll be there welcoming you. Thank you very much. Harish, you can conclude.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.